This video is for the lesson 3.10 homework. All right, so we're finishing up transformations today, okay? We are doing reflections, stretches, and compressions today. So number one, what is the name of a transformation frequently described as a flip or the mirror image of the original figure? That's a reflection. And then number two, what is the name of a quantity that influences the output or behavior of a mathematical object but is viewed as being held constant? This one is a parameter. So that's what we're messing with. When we do all these transformations, when I do two up, two right, I'm messing with the parameters, the boundaries of what the parent function is. Remember, parent function of all these is just x. And we're doing all kinds of stuff to it to get like the 2x plus 3. Oh, it would help if y'all could see. Wouldn't it? All right, so the first one is just being able to identify what these transformations are. So in your book, in your journal, those notes. If you look, so this back page is really good, and it shows you here like a reflection. If the negative sign is in front of the f of x, we're reflecting it across the x-axis. If the negative sign is just in front of the x, we're reflecting it across the y-axis. These are kind of tricky, the stretches and compressions, okay? So if the number is in front of the entire thing, we're talking about a vertical something, okay? If this number is bigger than 1, it's a vertical stretch. If the number in front of the f is less than 1, it's a vertical compression. And then here, if they put a number in front of just the x, we're talking about a horizontal compression or stretch. And when they're saying compression or stretches, if I stretch something, I'm pulling it like this. If I'm compressing something, I'm pushing it like this, okay? As long as you know mathematically what's going on, you can look at the equation and tell what's going on, and you're going to be okay. But this page, this is where this last page that I gave you on Friday comes in super handy because you can just match stuff up. So if we look, our first one says the negative is out in front. So if we look, the negative out in front, it's a reflect across the x-axis. So reflect across x-axis. So what that looks like, you need to know what it looks like as well. If I reflect something across the x-axis, this is the x-axis. So I'm flipping it. I'm just going to do a really easy shape. I'm not going to do a line. If I have a triangle and I reflect this across this x-axis, it looks like this. That's my reflection. So it's also called a vertical reflection. Either is correct. Vertical reflection or reflecting across the x-axis. Know for sure which axis you're flipping across. All right, number 4. So that means if the negative is just in front of the x, we're reflecting it across the y-axis. And so if I reflect something across the y. Sorry, it froze on me. So this is this one right here, the up and down, that's my y-axis. So same thing, if I have my triangle, triangle doesn't work real well with this one. I'm trying to think of a letter that would. An S would reflect. If I reflect that S, it flips it horizontally. So it's flipping it sideways. So flipping it up or down, is a vertical reflection. Flipping it left and right is a horizontal reflection. So if all they're doing is they're putting a negative in there, we're doing some type of reflection. If they're putting a number in there. So remember on Friday's sheet, it told us like a direction, 2 up, 2 down, 2 left, 2 right. These aren't giving you a direction, they're just plugging a number in. That's where it's a stretch or a compression. So for this first one, I have a number out in front of the F. So that's this one. So we know it's vertical something. That number is a 5. So is 5 bigger than 1 or less than 1? Bigger than 1. So it's a vertical stretch. Just follow the arrows. Vertical stretch. Oops, sorry. So this one, the number is in front of just the X, which means for sure it's going to be horizontal, something. Okay? Out in front, it's a vertical. Just in front of the X, it's a horizontal. So we know it's horizontal, and 1/4. Greater than 1, less than 1. Less than 1. So less than 1 is a horizontal stretch. So it's a stretch as well. It's just a horizontal stretch. You will be asked questions like that on the quiz tomorrow. Make sure you have that note page. It's going to come in. It'll be a lifesaver for you. All right, so now to actually do it. It says reflect across the y-axis. So we've got x plus 15. So if I reflect it across the y-axis, all I'm doing is I'm changing the sign of the x. So this becomes, remember we change it to g of x. The x becomes a negative x, and the 15 stays positive. If, say, I was going to reflect it across the x-axis, I take the entire equation and I multiply the entire equation by a negative 1. And so I distribute that negative 1 out, which gives me negative x minus 15. So if you're flipping across the y, the sign of the x changes. If you're flipping across the x, both signs change. And that's in your notes as well. It shows you how to do that. All right, stretches. These always confuse me. These are difficult for me to do, so don't get frustrated with them. So we're going to do a horizontal stretch by a factor of 6 over 5. Is that horizontal? That one is. Okay. I can promise you there are none on the test that are like this. Okay? If I'm doing a horizontal stretch, I have to use the reciprocal. Y'all remember what the reciprocal is? What's the reciprocal of 6 over 5? 5 over 6. Zach, head up. So the reciprocal is 5 over 6. Okay? So I'm going to stretch it, which means I'm only going to mess with the x. Okay? So I'm going to do negative 12, and then I'm going to do 5 over 6 x, and then plus 1. All right, so I multiply, or ooh, not there. Just here. I'm going to distribute negative 12 times 5/6. Negative 12 times 5 over 6. And I get a negative 10. Tack on the x, and then this little one's just hanging out. He just kind of comes along for the ride. Again, those are the toughest. I know I did not put me on the test. They've never been on an EOC. All right, so that was a stretch horizontally. If I want to compress it horizontally, same thing. Do the exact same thing with the reciprocal. Flip it if it's horizontal, stretch or compression. Okay? All right, 10. Now we're compressing vertically. If we're compressing vertically, we multiply the entire equation by that number. Okay? So I would do 3/4, and then I would multiply that by the entire equation. So I would do 3/4 times -8. 3/4 times -8 gives me a -6. Tack on the x, and then 3/4 times -12. And I get a -9, so -9. Sorry, this should have been g of x. This one should be g of x equals -6x minus 9. So the only one that I have left for you is the reflection. Here's the deal. It says reflect across the x. Flip everything. And you're going to write the new one on this line. If you want to reflect it across the y-axis as well, I'll give you some bonus points. But you've got to label which one is flipping it across the x and which one is flipping it across the y. Okay?